Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word. And yes, here we are again, time for my driver lineup predictions for 2022. And you know what? Whilst much of the grid is confirmed or is as good as confirmed, some of these teams were pretty tough to call. Before I get onto that though, I'm going to slap my usual caveat on things here. These are just a little bit of fun. Please do not take them too seriously. And if you do happen to totally disagree with my picks, which most of you probably will, then feel free to let me know yours down in the comment section and we can be completely wrong together. But let's kick things off, shall we, with the lineups that have already been confirmed, starting with McLaren. So, the Woking team already handed Lando Norris a new contract earlier this year, and quite honestly, who can blame them? He's been arguably the standout driver of 2021 so far, and is absolutely 100% deserving of that extension. What a season he's having. On the other side of the garage though, Daniel Ricciardo has struggled to match the form of his teammate and currently sits a whopping 63 points behind the Brit. That's massive. But there are still potentially up to 12 races to come this year, so he has got plenty of time to try and get up to speed. But regardless of that, he will still be with the team next season because, of course, he penned that 2-year deal when he signed for them last year, which takes him to the end of 22. Some of you may well ask the question, maybe should McLaren move him on if he continues to struggle? But that could get very expensive if they've got to buy him out of that contract, and a little bit messy as well. And I would be genuinely very shocked if they look to end that deal early. It will be Norris and Ricciardo at McLaren next year. When it comes to Ferrari, Charles Leclerc has a long-term deal in place, and so he won't be going anywhere anytime soon. And to be fair, just looking at this year, he's had a solid first 11 races, and of course has even managed to pick up a couple of pole positions as well, and came within a couple of laps of victory at Silverstone, a solid start to the year. And that's pretty much the case with Carlos Sainz as well. Out of all of the drivers who switched teams, he has been by far the standout performer. Yeah, there have been some mistakes along the way, but he is currently sat 3 points clear of his teammate in the standings and has 2 podiums to his name. Like his teammate, he's contracted for next season, so Ferrari will be unchanged for 2022. Alpine handed Esteban Ocon a new deal a few months back now following a solid start to the season, and although his form did sort of drop away a little bit after that, he seems to have found his feet again and capped off a good first half of the season with that excellent win in Hungary. Still can't get over that. Hopefully though, he can take that win and kick on and get back to that consistent form he showed early on. Fernando Alonso took a little bit of time to get up to speed, but he's now scored at every race since Baku, including grabbing that 4th place in Hungary. The Spaniard did originally sign a 1-year deal with an option for another year when he joined the team in 2021. And as I'm sure you'll remember, it's already been confirmed that that option has been exercised and he will be staying alongside Ocon next year. I actually think, and I'm sure some will disagree, but I actually think this could be a very strong lineup for the team in 22, and Alpine could actually be dark horses next year. Keep an eye on them. So those are the 3 teams that have 100% confirmed their drivers for next season, but there are a couple more who will probably stick with what they've got now. We already know that Sebastian Vettel has a contract in place to stay with Aston Martin for another year at least. He's another one, isn't he, that had a tricky start to his life with the team, but he did find some good form in Monaco and Baku, and of course drove extremely well to take 2nd place the last time out before being disqualified. Let's not talk about that. He did also take 2nd place in Baku, of course. He's done an okay job in a car that has had its problems this season. As the team keep telling us, they were a victim of the rule tweaks for 2021, but Vettel will still be there next year. And as for his teammate, well, nothing has been officially announced, but there is little doubt that Lance Stroll will be staying where he is. First of all, whilst we don't know the length, we get told every season that he has a long-term deal. He's also the son of owner Lawrence Stroll, which means the chance of him being dropped is slim. But I've got to say that's the only reason he would stay at Aston Martin is a little bit unfair. He's been a match for Vettel this year, and when you throw in his 2020 season, he's actually showing some very solid progress as a driver. Sure, the fact his dad owns the team is going to help, of course it is. But he's also done enough, in my view, to keep hold of that drive for at least another year, regardless of who owns the team. So I fully expect him to partner Vettel again next season. And finally for this part, it is Haas. Now, Mick Schumacher has done a decent job in a pretty terrible car, although it's hard to ignore the fact he has had a few big and expensive crashes this season that need to be avoided going forward. Despite that, though, he has solidly outperformed his teammate and looks set to stay with the team for next year. There is some talk that he might be on his way to Alfa Romeo, but Gunther Steiner has already said that a new deal for the German just needs, and I'll quote, a few T's crossed and a few I's dotted. So it doesn't sound as though he's going anywhere and will stay put. Of course, this is F1 and you never know. He could end up driving for Ferrari, or we know. You know how crazy it gets sometimes in silly season. On the other side of the garage, though, Nikita Mazepin has got a contract in place with Steiner confirming a few weeks back that, again, quote, everything is signed. But let's be totally honest here. He is not going anywhere anytime soon. His dad is paying for that seat and could well end up even buying the team in the future if you believe the rumours. So yeah, he is going to be staying at Haas. I will say, and maybe I'm in the minority here, but he has shown some signs of improvement as the season has progressed. Nothing earth-shattering, but still progress is progress. The car, again, is pretty bad, so this year was always about learning and finding their feet for both drivers. And there is actually still plenty of time for both of them to keep learning and improving, but I fully expect we'll see that those two will be staying at Haas for next year. Right then, that is the confirmed lineups and the probable lineups out of the way. So what about the rest of the field? This is where it gets interesting. I'm going to start with Mercedes. Now, we already know that Lewis Hamilton will be staying with the team for 2 more years, and I don't think that new deal surprised too many people. I mean, ever since he signed his 2021 contract earlier this year, he and the team have been talking about wanting to work together beyond that, so it was almost inevitable. And that's not even to mention the fact that he is a 7-time world champion and the team has given him everything he's needed to pretty much dominate over the last few years. Essentially, what I'm saying is there was never any real reason for the two to part ways other than Lewis retiring, of course. The big question is, though, and this is the one that holds the key to the rest of the driver market, who will be his teammate next year? Toto Wolff has been clear that it is between 2 drivers, and they are Valtteri Bottas, who obviously currently has that seat, and George Russell, who is a Mercedes junior. I think there is a very strong argument for the team to keep hold of Bottas for another year. He is a proven quantity. He doesn't rock the boat. He gets on very well with Lewis Hamilton. He does pick up the points needed to help the team win the Constructors' title. The problem is 2021 hasn't been great for him so far. Yeah, he has picked up 6 podiums and was extremely unlucky in Monaco, otherwise it would probably have been 7. But mistakes have been made and we've seen poor performances as well. He was, quite frankly, dreadful in Baku, caused that pile-up in Turn 1 at Hungary, and don't forget, was racing with a Williams in Imola. And it has to be said as well that even when he has finished on the podium, he's generally been well off his teammate come the end of the race. Like I say, far from great, a very disappointing season so far. And that's why I honestly do feel like the writing is on the wall for him when it comes to his time at Mercedes. I fully expect that we will soon hear that George Russell will be taking a Finn's place alongside Hamilton for 22. George Russell has been so good this season. His qualifying performance has been strong, making it into Q2 consistently, and even grabbed a Q3 appearance as well. And he's been on the fringes of points more than a couple of times. Okay, that Williams is by far the best car he's driven competitively in F1. It has come a long way from that car he was driving in 2019, and he was just outscored by his teammate at Hungary. But he's still been very good this year, and now feels like the right time for Mercedes to give him that opportunity. Hamilton is tied down for the next 2 seasons, so getting George in that second seat gives the team time to assess him and see how he does up against the world champion. I suppose what I'm saying is that it gives them the chance to see if he is the driver to pick up the baton, if you like, and lead the team once Hamilton retires. And the only way they can know for sure if he is the one for the future is to give him that opportunity. Is it a risk, a gamble? Absolutely, of course it is, but it's a calculated gamble in my opinion, and it's one that's very much worth taking because the team needs to start looking long-term, and I don't honestly believe that Bottas is the driver to build that team around in the future. I feel for him, but I think it's time to give Russell a go. It's got to be Russell for me, so I'm going with Hamilton and Russell at Mercedes for 22. On to Red Bull, we already know that Max Verstappen will be staying where he is because he has a contract in place, but also because he is delivering. I actually think he's been another one of those standout drivers this year, and had it not been for the blowout in Baku, the incident at Silverstone, and Bottas's bowling antics in Hungary, he could easily be long gone with this title already. He's been very, very good. Who will be his teammate next year is between Sergio Perez and Pierre Gasly. In fact, Helmut Marko has recently stated that the team's intention is to keep the 4 drivers they currently have. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I would like to see Gasly get a second chance at the main team at some point because I think he's been superb since returning to AlphaTauri, but I do not see it happening, and it can't be down to performance, surely. So something is going on or has gone on that we don't know about behind the scenes, or at least we don't have the full details about. I'm not even going to debate this next bit. It is way too soon for Tsunoda to step up, so that means that surely Checo is going to stay put. I mean, look, I don't think Checo has been amazing. I really don't. In fact, I'd say he's been a little bit too inconsistent and the gap to Verstappen is pretty big. Then again, he has made it into the top 6 at every race he's finished, aside from when he was sacrificed by the team to go for fastest lap at Silverstone. And of course, aside from that 11th place finish where he had that spin at Imola. And he's made it onto the podium twice, including a win in Azerbaijan. Yes, there have been mistakes and sloppy weekends, but he's been okay. Nothing amazing, just okay. Despite his inconsistency though, I just don't see anyone but Perez alongside Verstappen next year. Maybe Bottas could fill that seat. He could be a great option for them, or perhaps Russell if Mercedes don't take him, but I'm not convinced that will happen. And all the chat from Red Bull seems to point towards Perez staying. And to be honest, kind of as we said about Albon last year, whoever sits in that second seat is going to struggle. And if a driver like Perez is going to struggle, then that kind of confirms that. So there comes a point where the team needs to stick with someone for more than a year and a bit and give them a decent chance to get up to speed. And I would also argue Checo has shown more promise than anyone who has partnered Verstappen since Ricciardo left, but he's still got a way to go. That all said, Verstappen and Perez for me at Red Bull next year. It will then come as a little surprise to hear that I fully expect the AlphaTauri lineup to stay the same too. As already touched on, Pierre Gasly has been fantastic and has been consistently strong this season. He's scored points at all but one race he has finished. He grabbed a podium in Baku. His qualifying performances have also been very impressive. And so there is just no reason for the team to get rid of him. And to be fair, for the short term, there's no real reason for him to move on. He will need to move soonish though, because as I say, I don't think Red Bull will take him, and Alfa is there to develop young drivers for the team. So there will naturally come a point where they want to move him on and give the next generation a shot, but he's okay there for now. And yes, I think Yuki Tsunoda will stay too. He had a great start to his F1 career in Bahrain and really impressed actually. However, he then hit that really rough patch with crashes, mistakes and poor results, causing people to question whether or not he was ready for F1. But since, I'd say, Baku, there has been a change, and although he did crash again in France and there has been a few moments, he seems to be getting to grips with that car a little bit more and is showing signs of decent improvement. But he needs to keep it calm, keep it clean and keep improving as this season goes on. But I'd argue he's doing enough at the moment to be given one more season. The only realistic threats, if you want to call them that, to his seat are Liam Lawson and Jory Vips. But whilst I do think those two are most likely the next to make the move to AlphaTauri out of all the Red Bull juniors, they just aren't ready yet. So options are limited, like I say, as well for the team. So give Tsunoda that second season, give Vips and Lawson another year in F2, and then see how things are this time next year. That just makes sense to me. Now, this is where it gets really tough. Two teams still to go, and they are, for me at least, the hardest to call. Let's go with Alfa first. Frederic Vasseur has previously said the team has full control over its lineup for next year, although I would genuinely be surprised given their Ferrari ties if they don't have a Ferrari driver on board. In terms of options for both seats, Kimi Raikkonen could very easily stay. We have this discussion every single year, and one day he will retire, but will it be this year? He hasn't had the best of seasons so far, although he is a point better off than his teammate. Then again, when it comes to qualifying, he is being beaten by Gio. What does help Kimi out, though, is the fact that Alfa is sticking around, and it is well known that the brand would like a world champion on its books. So unless he wants to retire, he could be heading into another season in F1, which would be his 20th. Then again, whilst not a world champion, Valtteri Bottas is a proven race winner, has shown he has the pace to take on the best, especially in qualifying, and would be a great asset to Alfa Romeo. He has also emerged as one of the favourites to switch to the team should Merck let him go, and Vasseur was reportedly seen several times in the Mercedes hospitality area in Hungary. Perhaps he just preferred the coffee there, I don't know. Or maybe he was trying to sort something out with Bottas, but the link is there and getting stronger. I'm going to stick my neck on the line with this one and say that Raikkonen will call it a day at the end of the season and that Valtteri Bottas will replace him. Antonio Giovinazzi has been doing an okay job, and I think he's been doing better than many seem to give him credit for, and is more than a match for Raikkonen. Then again, is that because he's doing a great job, or is it that Kimi has, I guess you could say, gone off the boil a bit? What I mean is we're not talking about Gio going up against prime Kimi here. That said, I do think there is a solid argument for keeping on for one more season and seeing how he goes up against potentially Bottas. But I suspect he will have competition from both Callum Ilott and Robert Schwartzman, because as I said earlier, whilst they don't have to take a Ferrari Junior, I still think they will. Ilott has done a good job in the FP1 sessions he's taken part in, and the team are said to be very impressed with his feedback behind the scenes. And although Schwartzman hasn't been quite as good as certainly I expected him to be in F2 this year, he is still a promising young talent and has still got a shot at the title. This is a really tough one, and if you throw Robert Kubica in there as well, it's really tough to call. Although I'll be honest, I don't really expect to see the pole back racing in F1 again. So do you know what? Screw it. I'm going bold. I'm going with a whole new lineup for Alfa Romeo. So that's Valtteri Bottas, and yeah, I know others have gone with Ilott, so I'm going to throw a wild card in there if you like and say Robert Schwartzman will partner him. But I think it is between Gio, Ilott and Schwartzman. You watch, Kimi will sign a new 5-year deal now. Anyway, last but by no means least, it's Williams, and I really don't know because there are so many options. First of all, Russell and Latifi could both stay, but if either or both leave, the reported list of who could replace them seems to be pretty huge. Alex Albon, Guan Yu Zhou, Nico Hülkenberg, Daniel Kvyat, Pierre Gasly, Valtteri Bottas, and even Nick de Vries have all been mentioned. As I've already covered, I do think that Russell will leave for Mercedes, and I don't see Bottas making that romantic return to the team that gave him his F1 chance all those years ago, even though it is a very exciting project and that could well tempt him. You never know, I guess. I also actually think Latifi has done an alright job and seems to be developing, albeit slowly, and he's not exactly pulling out the big headline-grabbing performances that Russell is. Hungary aside, of course, where he drove brilliantly. So there is a good chance the team will keep him on. He also brings money, and whilst they don't necessarily need the cash anymore, if he improves and they can get a solid driver as well as some money, they're not exactly going to say no. Hülkenberg would be a great shout if they can't land Bottas, because that gives them the experience they might be looking for. And again, for a driver like Hülkenberg, it's potentially a very exciting project to be a part of. I don't see it being Zhou, honestly, despite the fact he's having a very good season in F2. The thing is, he's a Renault or Alpine young driver, and Williams is currently strengthening ties with Mercedes, which means a move to the team for him strikes me as a little bit unlikely. I've already said I think Gasly is staying where he is, although quite frankly, I'd snap him up in a heartbeat if it was up to me. And although I still think he has something to offer and kind of has some unfinished business in F1, and I would love to see it, I don't think Kvyat will be making another F1 comeback. Albon is a strong possibility, maybe. I still think he's got something to prove as well, and he's got a lot of untapped potential as well and could do a very solid job at Williams. But I'm just not sold on him making the move, and I honestly couldn't tell you why. It's just not something I see happening. Can't explain it any better than that. And with all that waffle in mind then, who am I picking? Well, hear me out on this. The Nick de Vries rumour that has been floating around lately could actually be a serious possibility. Yes, I know I've just been on holiday. No, I'm not still drunk. It is just my weird mind. He's just won the Formula E Championship. He is an F2 champion, and I still think he's a seriously good driver with bags of potential, someone for the team to build around. Williams is strengthening those Mercedes ties, and it was announced recently that Mercedes will be leaving Formula E at the end of Season 8. Yeah, he could stick around and do that season, but if a seat opens up at Williams, why not? I genuinely believe de Vries to Williams could happen, and that's why I have to put him in one of those seats. And when it comes to the other seat, I really do feel like Latifi will stay. I don't necessarily think that he should. He's been okay, but nothing special, but I think he will stay. Which means, perhaps controversially, I'm going to plump for Latifi and de Vries at Williams for 2022. Make of all that what you will, but that is it for my 2022 driver lineup predictions. But you can, as always, let me know your picks in the comment section down below. Don't forget, just a little bit of fun and all of that usual caveat stuff. Now, I will be back next week with some more content, and of course, it's Belgian Grand Prix week. Yes, F1 is back, and I'll be covering all the remaining races as usual between now and mid-December. In the meantime, though, don't forget to drop a like on this video if you did enjoy it, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any future uploads as well. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.